Dear friends, good evening. Glad to see you all on Feygin Live. It is Wednesday, 20th of July, 3 minutes past 10 Kiev time, and we're doing another stream on our channel, day 147, with Olexiy Arestovych. Glad to meet you, Olexiy. Good evening, dear friends. We have over 130,000 watching us, over 23,000 likes. I know I'm still bugging you about it, but please subscribe to Feygin Live and to Alexei's channel, and also to Privateer Station if you have not subscribed yet. Olexiy is wearing a fun badge, 2-3 weeks. Very nice badge, and yeah, we had some feedback that were probably a little too ironic. At the same time, more than a half people generally support that. So anyway, all the links will be in the description to that video. Let's start with today's situation on the front, if anything changed. It did change a bit. Offensive near Siversk and Bakhmut is really not working out for Russian troops. They've been attacking, and then all of a sudden they lost 2 villages. We will not name them here. They're, 2 smaller settlements, but that was the result of their attacking. So the offensive is not really working for them. Danila Master cannot push that beautiful flower. That's a reference to the fairy tale about a guy making an anecdote about that. He was making a beautiful flower for the owner of the mountain. So hang on. Before we go further, I need to wave my hand. My kids just texted me and said, please wave. We are watching you live. Alright, well, these are not my kids, but I will wave to your kids as well. If they ask to wave, I'll join you. Alright, let's continue. No, it's all good. Let's go back to the front. So, the amount of shelling did decrease from 45,000 to about 15,000, and that used to be the basis of success for Russian troops in their offensive to Lysychansk and Severodonetsk. But let's notice that the main power, the main force was from Izum to Slavyansk in that direction. And despite all that happening and all the artillery they have, there is no movement there. Zero. So, having those shells and being able to shoot them in our direction is not necessarily a key ingredient, but it used to be an important ingredient, but these days I'm losing track of counting all the warehouses and ammo depots that are being taken out daily. I just see the notes, taken out. I might actually find some time and try to put it on the map altogether, but in the last 24 hours there were at least 4 huge ones, mostly in Kherson area, but there were also 2 in the direction of Siversk and Bakhmut. So that makes Russian army do 3 things. Move operative warehouses further out, 60-70 kilometers behind the front line. Then we come back to the dilemma of 60, 90, 120 kilometers. 60 is 3 tours for each vehicle transporting ammo. 90 is only 2 trips. and basically losing a capability to do any offensive. And 120 is warehouses being really pushed out, but that's only one trip for a driver a day, and that's no offensive, it's barely keeping up the line. So right now Russian warehouses are generally 60 to 90 kilometers. We're showing you the map. This is generally the location of the warehouses, 60 to 90. Can you reach them out there? Yep, we do, and we have some kinds of ammo that can reach that far, including HIMARS. I will not particularly note that, but in essence it basically drowns their speed of offensive. It slows it down to a degree that even on their public networks they start to discuss that this is somewhat an issue, and you can imagine if that's coming up there, that means that real situation is much worse. So imagine you're trying to get to Bakhmut and you're supposed to push, and unfortunately the ammo is not coming on time and the opponent's army is pushing you back. And they're also losing the last of their experienced troops that they still had left. So this is a very uncomfortable story for them in the long run. We understand that this will not change things immediately, but we do understand that in a month and a half, these results will start to show themselves. So right now we're talking about the part on the east, right? Yeah, exactly. They're not advancing anywhere else, really. They're just trying to advance on that side. What about Donetsk? That area? There are some Ugledar direction. We often forget about it. Zaporozhye, Ugledar direction. We actually did take a couple villages ourselves there. So, small tactical success. But it's symptomatic. It shows that Russian troops are losing their steam and they cannot continue pushing forward. And they need to concentrate 60% of all the troops they have in Ukraine to at least show something, and then even then get their ass kicked back. So, in Zaporozhye, they're shooting from Nikopol, or at Nikopol from Energodar. They're shooting absolutely sleeping areas. There's no military targets there. They're just it's just revenge. But all of a sudden they got an issue in Energodar. There were so many forces and equipment, and all of a sudden there were several strikes there, several hits. They're saying there are a lot of destroyed personnel and a lot of equipment. So I'm just transferring the message from our military: do not shoot at Nikopol. This is a really bad initiative. Don't shoot at peaceful parts, because you will get strange things happening. And they somewhat slow down their shelling after. So as for Kherson, I love talking about that direction. I think some of our viewers already saw the picture from Antonov Bridge. It looks like a Swiss cheese with a lot of holes. So there is an order from our president that Russian cameraman who was shooting the bridge, and the outcome of that effect got awarded a medal of a hero of Ukraine. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, are you serious? No, I'm kidding here. But he definitely should deserve such a medal, because did he direct fire? No. He showed the results. This is good. So professionals who know how to destroy bridges, they were very happy to see that video and He essentially showed what was destroyed, what wasn't destroyed. So our bridge destruction experts are delighted. I want to turn to that guy. Friend, no. When Putin's regime will fall apart, you will at least get an thank you plaque. And after that, they closed the bridge for checking and review because you cannot send military equipment over that. It looked as if you guys were just trying to hit it and gauging the distance and the right angle, so you were just trying to attach it, to attack it. No, Mark, this was not targeting practice. This was actually an attempt to hit it. And of course there is a railroad bridge, of course there is Novokakhovka bridge, but what we showed is that everything is reachable by our military. Alright, so these strikes, were these HIMARS that you used them 2 days? Who can tell, Mark? Who can tell? Alright, so there are holes in the bridge. Okay, yeah, you can call them holes. It's unprofessional, but holes. So the bridge can stay with these holes, or this is normal? Mark, yeah, it is holding on. Problem is that you cannot exploit it in that condition. And if there'll be 2 or 3 more hits like that, he probably will. That bridge will probably cease to operate entirely. So what about Novokakhovka bridge? It's a little hard to destroy that bridge, but one can probably target everything that moves on that bridge. So we can make it more difficult. They'll have to move single vehicle later at night. So we can make it, a 50-50 proposition driving through that bridge. And Russian drivers and Russian logistics operators, it becomes a very, probably most dangerous profession, especially if you're guarding an ammo dump. We also destroyed a Russian radio location station that was supposed to perform coordination of strikes of S-400 at low-flying targets, like UAVs and helicopters and such. So this is a station that's super modern, that did provide certain cover for Russian troops, and we destroyed it entirely. The sensation is not that. The sensation is that the third. That station was number 3 already in the last period. We also, there in Novokakhovka, we also destroyed several warehouses, destroyed radio location system, S-300 launch system, and some missile warehouse. In addition, military professionals and just people with logic can understand that at first we were hitting warehouses, now we're hitting at the anti-air systems. That means that Russian group on the right bank is becoming softer and softer and softer, and we're just flipping it as the burger patty, and already it's almost medium rare. We're about looking to see where to bite it from. We have 310,000 watching us. Most people are expressing similar emotions in our live chat. So that's from the general analysis, right? We can go proceed to dessert. 7th set of sanctions. You want to go to 7th, or do you want to start with Rammstein? Let's start with Rammstein first. And from there we'll go to Putin, Lavrov, and their statements. So Rammstein, I had a previous stream with Piankovsky. He did follow, and he was translating from English all the statements that Austin was making. And they basically support the effort that our allies expressed earlier. So, from your point of view, what's the most important that was said there, and what perhaps is a precursor to a new decision that will affect the future events in Ukraine? Many good things were said there. I would specifically highlight two of them. He gave a grade. Some people translated that as final stage. I think more accurate would be decisive, with a shade of final stage of war. What does he mean? He means that Russian army is at the plateau. It is not going to be stronger than it was before, and right now this plateau is somewhat, one of its edges is going down and starts to slide back. So, month and a half. This is the estimate of Austin. Not mine, I'm just repeating that one. And Austin is not an idiot. No, he is not. He has a good command of data. Americans usually rely on some data that they have. And prognosis is not just a way to predict future, it's also a tool to shape this future. And just in little details, there are 4 additional HIMARS approaching our front, so our total number of that goes up to 20, and then with M270s we'll be at 30 plus. You know, remember the days when 4 to 8 HIMARS did change the flow of war. Now if you multiply it by 6, it will change seriously a lot of things, and then we can start targeting battalion level targets, and it will inspire HIMARS fear in Russian troops. And I can remember one of the classics of Russian who had a phrase that not with his brain capacity but with his whooped ass the man became wiser. And actually I had a good interview today with Julia Latinina. There is another story behind that HIMARS stuff. The story is that according to some signs we're winning counter-artillery, counter-battery fire. So the West is supplying not just artillery, it's usually supplying it as a complex. There is artillery, there is some MLRS system, and then there is probably a UAV attached to that. And we started winning it on the brigade level. When Russian MLRS systems are hitting us, that's one thing. But when it's artillery and something that's easier to track, we do and we shoot back almost immediately. And also if you look at the fleet, Russian fleet, they took their ships further down south from Sevastopol. I think that's a direct reaction to the threats that you might have some tools to reach them. Indeed, and I would even suggest them to not to self-withdraw, but to also self-sync. Perhaps with the tools you guys currently have, it may be a bit safer for the personnel. Yep. So back in, remember when the Falkland War happened? Argentina thought Brits cannot do anything with Falklands. And yet they still pushed and got the task accomplished. So, speaking of Zminy, the Snake Island, do you know we saved the cat there? What do you mean? Well, when we landed there to put the flags out, we landed and we found some Russian documents and we found a cat. So is it Russian cat? I don't know. Maybe it was Ukrainian cat and then became Russian, whoever owns the island. But in any case, we managed to evacuate the cat from the island. Imagine one cat and an amazing destiny that he has so far. Do you have a picture? Yeah, there is a picture of that somewhere. I'm sure we can dig it up. So when Russian troops evacuated from the island, nobody knows what he was eating there and how he survived. And then our special forces landed there and evacuated the cat. So we have 350,000 watching us. We've been 20 minutes live. Do not forget that many things depend upon you. You know what? You need to click that like thing. Let's discuss Lavrov's statement. He once again changed the goals of this operation in his speech. He somewhat geopolitically made them wider. So he said that Russia now is not going to limit itself to Lugansk and Donetsk regions. It is ready to enlarge the zone of operation. I think there are two things here. He is probably reacting to a general lack of success in drawing Ukraine to any kind of negotiations and pause any military activity in Kherson, perhaps. And on the other hand, Putin made a statement, and he's talking about goodwill again. In which weird part of his sick body is he looking for goodwill? Putin says that he withdrew his troops from Kiev because of goodwill. So, if you withdrew the troops to propel negotiations during talks in Istanbul, why on earth did you continue fighting during these talks in Istanbul? So, that's completely incongruent. Mark, they are lying. They're always lying. Istanbul talks were on 27th. Troops withdrawal started at the beginning of next month. They're always lying. My favorite lie of theirs is with the Medal of Crimea. They started lying that they are trying to save Crimeans from those who toppled Yanukovych. And Yanukovych had a meeting with an opposition, with the leaders of Maidan, with members of EU, and they agreed that, okay, there are different re-elections coming, despite of 200 deaths on Maidan. And Russia already had medals for capturing of Crimea on the 20th. So, in essence, they were capturing Crimea from the legit president of Ukraine. And they actually threw they moved the first of their troops there on the 12th. And they're still bringing that legend up, even though, they completely did a foobar with the Crimea. I think there'll be a lot of goodwill coming from Russia. So it might be something like to provide for safety of grain transport. Russian troops withdrew from Kherson region. I think that'll be a very difficult thing to sell, because they wanted to do a referendum there, right? They did, but then decided the goodwill matters more, and it's time to run. Goodwill, run. So, what do you think happened with that speech of Lavrov? I think they read the reviews of Putin's speech to Iran, and they decided to say something of notice. The whole visit was basically a disaster. He was face-slapped. Erdogan came later to the meeting, so that's first face-slap. He did not get any UAVs, at least formally, officially. There are a couple of achievements, maybe, that one can claim. I'm sorry, too many notes. Can't find them right now. But there were a couple achievements there. In general, he demonstrated that an old senile grandpa is not really respected much. I already told Julia today that what was supposed to be a culmination of his career became the point of despair, the point of grief for his persona. And I want to share, I got a closed report that Kremlin is doing for itself. I can't remember exact details, but it basically goes as this. 30% of Russians, they support continuation of war, 25% somewhat maybe support, 25% undecided, and the rest are categorically against it. And they're trying to understand who's supporting the operation. So one of it is belonging to the brand Russian. Second is monetary wealth. Cities like Petersburg, Moscow, Tyumen. And a third is belief in might of Russian army. So according to the questionnaire, belief in might of Russian army has deteriorated. Material situation is desperate. We're getting there, and belonging to the brand Russians is still holding. So what I think is happening, Putin, in the eyes of these crazy patriots, is the person who pulled Russia from the democratic idiocy as they see it. That Russia was playing for Americans, that the only bright spot there was the capture of airport in Pristina during the Yugoslavia crisis. So Putin is the person who, in the eyes of those who supported him, is the one who rebuilt Russia, brought back Russian brand, who was in the 90s was, as they think, in the gutter, and it was destroyed and trampled upon by Chechen terrorists and Americans and etc. Putin rebranded that, and that's one of the core reasons for their liking of him. And now let's follow the other steps. Economy is going down. Everybody is becoming poorer. Second, during the meeting of Security Council, FSB head was reporting on regions that there are issues with safety. So in Ukraine we do have national battalions made of Russians, and there is some resistance forming in Russia. And the third is brand Russian. So problem is, if citizens decide that it is a criminal event, then there is a big rejection of everything related, including the brand and military support and everything. Though if they think it is legit operation, then they're still supporting that. So those who support Putin, they also think, curious thing, that China is an ally. Those who completely against it, they do consider China to be not an ally. So it kind of follows with the major propaganda swaths that Putin's regime was painting. So it's interesting that sanctions, they hit the economy. We in Ukraine are hitting on the image of Russian military. And of course, most of the war is being waged by the infantry, the usual infantry of Ukrainian military, but HIMARS is doing a lot of help. And then as for supporting the brand, Dagestan and Buryatia lost a lot of people. So ethnic detachments are being sent to the forefront of events, and this is not propaganda, this is true. So they're doing that to save the image of Russian in the Russian eyes. So they're spending national minorities in that. And step by step, it does erode a belief in Putin's construct of the world, of the global balance. Initially, they had about 70% believing in Putin without questions. Now it's only about 30 and change. So that's at least half of people changing their mind. And a lot of people are falling into believing that Putin's regime is a criminal regime. And that shows that despite of all the propaganda people can see through, when they see Kremenchuk, Vinnytsia and others, then they start to understand that they're doing something wrong. Perhaps Ukraine needs to be put in place, and at the same time, not at the cost of shooting cruise missiles at civilian targets and killing 6-year-olds and their mothers. Today, Elena Zelenskaya, our first lady, had a beautiful speech in Congress, very emotional one, and she broke a tradition. First ladies usually take care of humanitarian matters. She actually asked for weapons. She showed images of dead children, and she said a very good phrase that we don't need a piece of anybody's land, but we just want to defend our own. And that did cause a splash in Ramstein meeting. So one way or another, it will reach Russian media as well. And Russians will hear that speech sooner or later. One needs to understand that these ratings are very specific, but Putin's regime is definitely a criminal one. And Putin is destroying the country and the soul of people who live there and who believed in that brand, and other peoples who went along with it. Russia has now over 55,000 dead, including private war companies, Wagner and others. Do you know how many battalion tactical groups went back to Russia to refit after Lysychansk battles? That means that they've lost at least 40 to 60% of their personnel, and they're doing another round of mobilization on the recently freed territories, so to say, because the main parts of DNR and LNR, they're not even providing any additional support. They already took pretty much every male person from there, even some female. So they're grabbing people from newly acquired territories, and that's an interesting factor. If any of you guys on the front line are thinking maybe giving up and flipping to the Russian side, you likely will be drafted and sent to the same grinder first. So, yeah, those who are supporting Russia, they're being sent to die first. These are crisis bells, rings, and the whole plateau starts to scoop to one side, basically being a precursor of huge issues in the front. In the future. And these questions from Moscow are very, very different from the original one. That was maybe 12 days earlier. Even here we can already see people shifting their positions about war, shifting their positions about these brands. That means our work is reaching people, that other materials published are reaching Russian people, despite the hashtags and all that. I did not have a chance to talk to people who were part of that party event where Khrushchev came to the podium and said that our great leader Stalin turned out to be not a traitor but a very bad person. So very soon Putin is being awaited by a horrible after-death destiny. And right now, looking at him, it's a sick, worn-out old man who is living through the most difficult political and personal catastrophes. and the only thing he has is to really step away from all the power. I do want to impress it on him that the condition of consciousness of the person during the moment of dying can determine a lot of things in his future or her future. So that point really, really matters. All right, we'll see what we'll know about them. At least Zelensky has the first lady. Putin doesn't really have any first lady. Probably Lavrov is his first lady. In the context of what we're discussing about the losses, because for Russian Joe, it doesn't quite get through that the number may have a very distracted or not real, far removed from reality value. Even if you say 50,000. So the question is how to convert these numbers. Perhaps you saw the investigation that BBC did. They found 4,500 people who are actually buried with the passport data, 4,500. Of course, a fool understands that the number is going to be really different, the real number. Who can be found, what a percentage can be found with that data in the country of the Russian size. Have they been to Sakhalin? Have they been to the Far East? Because it's very distributed. Plus, there are other victims, there are other soldiers who were destroyed in a way that nothing was left of them, just ashes. So one should, if you want a real number, you need to look at the number of those who are missing. So what's the way for an average Joe Schmo in Sakhalin and the Far East and some podunk nowhere? How do they find that data? Do they have to turn to Ukraine military, or where to ask? They probably will consider that to be Ukraine propaganda, especially the ones that are supporting Putin. A good question would be, check how many people in your little town came back dead, and consider how many of people in your town went to that war. So basically, if you had 10 people from your town who went to serve in Ukraine operation, and 3 were brought back in coffins or were not brought back, they disappeared, that would be your data across the board. So, what's the number now of them fighting? It's about 135,000, maybe up to 150. We can consider that in general the number of losses can reach about 100,000. So 300, 350,000 did a rotation in that time. So 100 is basically a third. That's a good data they need to realize in Russia, that every third is either dead or wounded, taken out. 4,000 battle vehicles are destroyed, military vehicles. Each of them had at least a driver. 1,000 destroyed tanks, at least they had a driver. It's a huge operation for the destruction of peoples of Russia, but what for? What's the goal of it? And this is good data, especially if you look through the equipment. You can goof around with the dead and missing, but you can't really do that with military equipment. There are also, it's easier. There are international agencies that do count the type of equipment, the geography, the GPS where it was destroyed, and they do support similar data that I named. Perhaps slightly less because they're really detailed, but they already counted everything. So it's like Afghanistan. The Soviet Union said that over 10,000 vehicles were destroyed, but they were burning on the roads. For the most part, they were blown up on the landmines. If one person died in each of them, then calculate 15,000, is it true or not? Of course it's not. There were a lot more dead there. Some of the Ukrainian servicemen counted back then I had data that just on the territory of Ukraine there were over 26,000 people buried in Ukraine. Not kids, there were colonels leading that effort. So, the way we see the Russian army fighting in Ukraine, the numbers could be very similar. Americans with an incomparable level of medical support in Vietnam lost about 58,000. And us in a similar military conflict lost 15. I'll never believe that. And it may sound real bad, but one can say that the country can pay that price when it was, if there is something for it. During the Second World War, we paid a higher price, but there was a cause for that. Proper Jesuit explanation would sound like for deflection or destruction of the threat to Russia on the territory of Ukraine would be the cause. That sounds horribly incongruent. Alright, 41 minutes we've been live, over 460,000 people watching us, over 150,000 left our likes. How's your time tomorrow? Yeah, it's good. Tomorrow's good. Alright, last announcement. We are continuing our campaign. Here's our NFT on OpenSea. It's selling for cryptocurrency and it's pretty slow. The last few days the activity was near nil. But in any case, if you're interested, please come in and buy stuff. And also our merch. New designs are out in our shop. My favorite, Fear Nothing. And the usual Feygin Arestovych, our mugs. There will be new designs there too. Probably with a proper degree of irony that will help you to not stay indifferent and actually buy stuff. There are also aprons I heard available, so the moment we get the first transfer from these sales, we'll send that whole amount to somebody from Vinnytsia. You know, we're trying to share that, so we're sending at least 2,000 per family or person. We're trying to give as much as we can get from all the fundraising. We would have given much more, but just not feasible at the moment. Thank you so much, Olexiy, and we'll talk tomorrow. Goodbye.